Mark Rogers TV talking some Big Ten football. Of course, the entire conference in play this week. Week one, the first full week of college football. We bring in Harold Shelton from the Big Ten Network. He does a lot of stats and information research for them to prepare their hosts and analysts for game day. All right. Know that you just went on the road, Harold, looking at all the Big Ten teams going to the camps and preparing for those shows. We've got a big game, the biggest game in conference play in terms of national reputation, what's going to be the storyline and narrative of the Big Ten, which gained a lot of respect early last season with some big non-conference wins. Michigan, Florida, neutral site game should be a great one.
Yeah, it should be. I was just looking at this yesterday. It looks like this will be one of 6 ranked matchups in non-conference the entire way. So the winner of this game obviously will have a huge feather in their cap heading toward the college football playoff in terms of their resume. The teams met a couple years ago in the Capital One Bowl game. Michigan thoroughly dominated from start to finish. I believe they won 41-7. Michigan replaces 10 starters on defense, but obviously they have Rashawn Gary, who was the #1 recruit in the country in 2016. So him and Mo Hurst will, be great on that defensive line, or at least expected to be. Mike McCray was an all Big Ten player at linebacker, so they at least have a little bit of experience, even though they did lose a ton with Jabril Peppers and Jordan Lewis. And with Florida, they haven't had a good offense in forever. They haven't even finished in the top 50 in scoring nationally since 2010. And so you would think that a Michigan defense that would be very inexperienced could struggle, but they're facing an offense that can't really move the ball, and they haven't figured out their starting quarterback. So, Florida might throw out 3 different quarterbacks. Michigan's going to try to get their feet wet on defense. And there's been a lot of smack talk going back and forth. McElwain, saying a few things about Harbaugh and how he's gimmicky. You have Florida players trash talking about how we're going to beat the brakes off of them. So we're getting a lot of juice for an early season game.
Yeah, I love these matchups. They typically come in postseason play with the Big Ten and the SEC being really the 2 power brokers in college football, not just from a winning standpoint, but when you talk about having the national networks, having the most butts in the seats, having the most money and resources, those by far are the 2 conferences that lead the way in college football. So when they get together, it means a whole lot. And as you mentioned, the loser may drop back. Not necessarily. They obviously have it all in front of them in terms of the conference, but in terms of national perception and ability to get back in that college football playoff race, where the winner for 2 programs and teams that are very good, but are they elite? That's the question. And the winner kind of gets that nudge to say, hey, we knocked off one of the best teams in the country, and they've got some momentum going forward. You mentioned Lee Zaire and Philippi Franks battling for that Florida starting job. So Jim McElwain, with a little bit of gamesmanship himself, holding that decision up until, who knows, possibly game time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a move that we saw Jim Harbaugh do his first year when he got there. He went into the submarine. No one knew who his starting quarterback was going to be until Jake Rudock ran on the field to take the first snap. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw the same kind of gamesmanship from McElwain.
Harold, before we let you go, in all your research preparing for this fall, is there anything that stands out that maybe we don't know a whole lot about that you uncovered? Maybe something that gives you a little bit more thought toward a particular team or player being a standout this year, or maybe a cause for concern for the likes of an Ohio State or Penn State that we just assume is going to vie for a college football playoff appearance that may cause some concern? Just maybe some nuggets out there that you've come across?
I would say Ohio State. The Kevin Wilson thing is definitely the most interesting thing to me, adding him as the offensive coordinator, because last year, even though they made the playoff, there were a lot of games where they had to kind of squeak by Wisconsin, Northwestern, Michigan State, Michigan. They could not find a consistent passing game downfield. And let me try to find the stat here. Basically, since Devin Smith left, like the last 2 years, they have not been able to do much throwing the ball downfield. And I have it here. So when Devin Smith was there, they had 32 pass plays of 30-plus yards in 2014. They've had 29 combined the last 2 years. So that's been a huge issue for them. And some of it has been at receiver. Guys like Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin haven't stepped up. Jalen Marshall left early. JT Barrett, the JT Barrett, Cardell Jones back and forth, neither one of them getting into a rhythm in 2015 when they were supposed to win it all. Like, there's been a lot of different factors to it, but they still have not been able to find that Devin Smith type player. And they're hoping with all these new receivers that they've added, the Trevon Grimes and the Austin Max, Ben Victors over the last couple of years, that at least one of these guys can be that guy to take the top off the defense. And who knows, hopefully Thursday for Buckeye fans, they'll be able to see some of that with Kevin Wilson calling the shots. But until they do, I think the jury's still out.
Yeah, the Jalen Marshall departure early really surprised me. He could have stepped into that role and really been the guy in replacing Devin Smith. As you know, Urban Meyer has been using the statistic all off season to outline the improvement from JT Barrett, to say our expectation in practice against the ones and the twos is to hit 60% of your downfield throws, and JT's hitting 90%. So that's been kind of a selling point to say, hey, get off his back. But we'll see if that comes and plays into fruition on the field. And you mentioned all these talented receivers that have the 4 and 5 stars next to their name coming out of high school, but 2 or 3 of them need to step up and make some plays downfield for the Buckeyes to be a much different offense in 2017 than they were certainly in 16. Harold Chilton from the Big Ten Network does some excellent research for the network there. We appreciate you dropping by, Harold, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me, Mark. Be glad to come back anytime.